Did you know Callum Wilson is the first Newcastle player to score 16 plus Premier League goals since Denver Bar in 2011, 2012?
That seems like a criminally long time, but also seems like a fitting stat for a fantastic season for Newcastle, really. He wasn't even the only one that was their goal threat for a change as well. It's an amazing season for Newcastle, isn't
No, and I tried to look to see if this is a record and when was the last time they had three players score 10 plus league goals in the season for them. I just couldn't find anything, but really interesting to find out if and when the last time was. If someone could comment on there and let me know, because
it? Yeah, come on,
I think
Newcastle.
that's I think the times that Newcastle fans have been through, particularly over the last 15 years, it's been a real hard watch and a real hard ride for them. But to just see them playing the way they are and they have been this season, it's been a breath of fresh air, and actually a real welcome one, actually, for kind of, the top 4, top 6 in the league, because it seems like it's been the same names up there for the last, 10 years or so. And actually, we thought Newcastle might get there eventually, especially after obviously the takeover, but no one kind of anticipated it to be this soon. And I think that's the thing really that's surprised everyone, and the consistency that they've maintained throughout the season has just been crazy, really.
There's a lot that's unpredictable about Newcastle's season. Like you touched on at the start with Callum Wilson, when they spent huge money on Isak, we kind of wondered what Wilson's place in the squad would be. And actually, they seem to play really well together, and not even just together on the pitch, but together as part of the squad and kind of replacing each other when necessary. That's been really well managed by Eddie Howe, and it's not the only thing he's managed really well. That whole squad, although we know they've got these endless riches and they've invested really well, the players they've brought in since the takeover, the likes of Trippier, Botman, Guimaraes, Isak, of course, they're fantastic signings, don't get me wrong, but it's not the kind of crazy spending we might have anticipated. And actually, Eddie Howe just did a really good job this season at developing that entire squad. I mean, look at someone like Fabian Schär, who I think a lot of Newcastle fans would have been quite happy to see replaced with another big money signing. And actually, he's had a standout season for them. So Newcastle finishing 4th and getting to a cup final. Yes, we kind of anticipate that happening with that club and the way that they're developing. But this early, this is an absolutely brilliant season for Newcastle, isn't it, Dave?
Oh, they're completely heading, sort of like the development path, you've got to say. And you just got to look at what players have done this season, and the whole squad have contributed. We've mentioned it, haven't we? That there's the contribution from everyone in that squad has been top level, really. The midfielders, you look at Joelinton, particularly, for example.
A busted flush, it felt like, but it's all of a sudden turned into one of the best midfielders, and also when he drifts out onto the left, wingers in the Premier League this season, if we're honest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was brought in originally as a striker, wasn't he? And he was kind of ridiculed for quite a while, and I think he's making everyone kind of eat the hat, really, with what he's been doing on the pitch and actually been contributing with the goals as well. Trippier's been outstanding as well. He's provided 9 assists from fullback, which is
ridiculous. He made our team of the season, of course.
Oh yeah, he did, and fully deserved it.
Absolutely.
And he made that place his own. I really couldn't think of that many right backs that actually did as well as he did, to be honest, throughout the season.
No, it wasn't even a competition, was it?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's the main thing, isn't it? I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the transfer window. And I was just saying to you before this, now it will be fascinating to see if they do really go for it now, because they've got that Champions League spot, which they would have been vying for, maybe potentially not this soon, but it'll be interesting to see if they do go for numerous players in certain positions, because all due respect to some of the players in that squad, I think there are some positions. I think Callum Wilson, for instance, I think he's had a brilliant season, but I think Alexander Isak is a better player. Potentially, he's got a bigger ceiling. Obviously, a younger player. Callum Wilson's, probably at the peak of his his career in his prime, and I just feel as though there are going to be positions which they will need to kind of upgrade. They will need to have strength in depth, because I think that is something that they do lack in that squad.
Yeah, and that will definitely be addressed. I think I'm surprised that Newcastle have been as quiet as they have, even in the closed season. I think I expected the floodgates to open, but Eddie Howe has just been really smart about how he goes about that business. We know that Maddison's linked, and that seems like the most likely transfer, but short of that, they've not been like. You thought that maybe, I don't know, something as ridiculous as Messi saying he's leaving PSG and Newcastle are going to try and throw a load of money at him. They've not done that. They are being smart with their plans. And that, to me, is a sign of the success that's to come with them as well. They've been really consistent in their approach. And it's shown on the pitch as well. Like, the consistency that Newcastle had this season is exactly why they've ended up where they did. We remember they had a 17-game unbeaten run in the league that was bookmarked by 2 fixtures against Liverpool that they lost, which are difficult fixtures. They managed to finish 4 points above Liverpool despite that still. A 17-game unbeaten run in the league and a cup final. Could it have gotten any better than that, really? What would Newcastle fans
I think even if
hope for next year now?
I think even if you think about the games they did lose against the big teams, like the one against Liverpool where obviously Nick Pope got sent off, they were the better team. They had so many chances even after obviously going those 2 goals down, where they potentially should have won the game. And even Jamie Carragher came out and said Liverpool were lucky after that game.
Absolutely.
Obviously, beat United easily, and I think one of the games where the biggest, I think, XG differential in the league all season, which was crazy. And
they battered us 4-0 at one point as well.
Oh, they did. Man City.
We did get our revenge. Sorry, Newcastle fans. I'm going to bring that up. The cheeky little 3-0 there. You finished above us.
The Man City game they lost was a very tight affair as well, and
And do you remember the draw at the start of the season? The 3-3 right at the start of the season.
Yeah,
incredible.
So they've shown they can compete with the best in this league, and that's the main thing for me. And the real eye opener, I think, we kind of all did wonder whether they could keep it going throughout the season. But I think when we saw them kind of performing, especially against the best teams in the league, you knew they kind of belonged up there, and I think that was the real eye opener.
Well, they went on from that Villa loss that I mentioned then to beat Spurs 6-1, and that was the point where you were like, "Oh no, they are serious." In my mind, well, no, probably not that point. I think there were a few points like that in the season where even when they did have a loss, they bounced back really quickly. It wasn't like all right, now we're going to drop in form. They lost that game to Villa. They beat Spurs 6-1. Then they beat Everton 4-1, and there was that amazing goal with the Isak assist. And they just kept the pace.
Yeah,
at the really vital times.
I think that was the difference between them and Liverpool. Newcastle would drop points, but then they would react, they would respond, and then go on another run of games where they'd pick up points. And Liverpool had too many games like that, I think, where they would obviously lose one, win one, lose one, draw one, lose one. It was very sporadic. But you can't. You've got to give him so much credit, and I'm just so glad that Eddie Howe's done what he's done, because I think when he first came in, I think there were a few Newcastle fans who are a little bit kind of unsure on him, whether he was the right man to take them where they needed to go, and he's proven everyone wrong.
So what does next season look like for Newcastle? We've talked about the kind of uncertainty of what they're doing in the market, but can you see them being successful in the league again and the Champions League? Like, how far do they go? What's Newcastle's aim for next season now? Because it feels like that's had to be reevaluated after the success of this year, right?
Yeah, I think you've got to be realistic, and I'm saying that, they probably thought that at the beginning of the season and thought Champions League wasn't realistic, so for them to be where they are. But I think you've got to look at the strongest team in the league, and that's Man City, and you've got to think, are we at that level yet? And they're not. Right, no other team are in this league, and you've got to work towards that. It's a step-by-step process. I think they will be looking to add strength in depth. I think there's some good players in this league, even in Europe, who are attainable and will definitely add something. I think the likes of probably another attacking outlet, someone who's creative. I think Lucas Paqueta at West Ham looks like a real player. I think he looks like a great player, and I think he'd fit in really well to a Newcastle team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think the thing is, it's obviously what's happened this season. it was so unexpected that you can't even anticipate what next season's going to bring.